clearly about what's at stake and not get distracted. And final thing I'll just say, we'll get no help from corporate media in this country. We will get no help from big tech. Big tech is letting the dictator in Havana tweet all kinds of nonsense.
Exactly.
I try to put out videos with scientists about kids wearing masks in school, and they censor me. They took down the president of the United States. They put them on the scale when they want to, and they're making a conscious decision to basically allow the regime to elevate itself and be able to do it. So we're not going to get help from big tech. We're not going to get help from corporate media entities like NBC or CNN, and you can expect them to do all they can to run interference for the regime. So that's where we're at. We've got a lot of stuff. There's going to be a lot of folks who are going to want to muddy the waters here. But my view is that when you speak the truth with conviction, courage, and clarity, that is more powerful than all the tech companies in the world. And so we just got to stand together and let our voices heard. So we're going to go around and hear from some great folks. So we'll hear from the Lieutenant Governor, and then we'll hear from Miriam and some of the other great people around here.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Governor. Thank you all so much for being here. It's such an honor to be with so many heroes, leaders, those that have fought the good fight, that have aligned with freedom in Cuba. And Governor, I think that we really deserve a round of applause, because there is no governor that has been stauncher on the side of democracy than this man right here. And I think it's fitting that we're here on July 13th on the anniversary of the massacre that I said in Isotypo, where men, women, and children lost their lives at the hands of a murderous thug for nothing more than the great sin of trying to escape tyranny and search freedom. And so for those that lost their lives that day, we will never forget. We will never forget your quest for freedom. And as we've seen the events of the last weekend develop, and we've seen the thousands of Cuban Americans, many of them the youth that would never have dared to confront the regime. What we're seeing brings hope to us all. I was there on Sunday night, and I can tell you the crowds, the enthusiasm, the passion, the fervor. It's unprecedented to see these people not ask, demand for their freedom. And you're right, Governor, this isn't about COVID. This isn't about food. This is about the fundamental values that they have been deprived of for so many years. And for those of us here, you're right. The dreams of our parents, the dreams of our grandparents, many of those that are sitting around the table, we heard all of those dreams at the dining room table growing up. A generation captivated with returning to their homeland, a free Cuba, seeing those fade into the distant future. But now is our moment. Now is our time. And to have a governor like you here in Miami, listening to the leaders, lending your voice to the cause, and to be able to sit with so many that have fought the fight for years, it is truly a humbling experience. And while many of us have been demoralized and depressed over the fact that a regime could prevail for 62 years, and some people have lost hope, but my faith leads me to the only place where you can seek for answers to the unimaginable. And that is in God's word, where in Psalms 9:9 it says, "The Lord will be a refuge for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. Tú, Señor, eres el refugio de los oprimidos. Eres un amparo en momentos de angustia." So again, I thank you all for being here. I encourage us all to continue to fight the good fight. This is our moment. This is our opportunity. We cannot fail our brothers and sisters in Cuba.
Yes. Yes.
Governor, I think this is a very important situation in the history of our nation. What happened on Sunday was unexpected. We have to analyze what really happened on Sunday, it was not organized by anybody. It was a spontaneous situation of a city, one city, who could not stand the regime anymore. From that city, pictures start coming out all over Cuba. And unbelievable, every single of those times, about 30 of them, exploded. This gives us the understanding of how is the situation in Cuba, how the Cuban people feel. We are at the edge of a really explosion of the Cuban people, and we have to be able to exploit them. It is very important that we can use our officials in Washington to get the technology that I know exists to be able to provide the Cuban people the access to the internet, which is the most important thing. And we will all be behind that. God bless America, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you. Yes.
I agree that what happened Sunday is not expected, but what is happening Monday and today was expected, and that is that the regime has come out attacking the brutally attacking the protesters to the point where there have been people that have been shot at. And I don't think it's time to hear over and over again what is happening in America. It's time to act. We need to have a plan. Every minute that passes is another life that we could be losing, an innocent life. Enough mothers have suffered already, enough parents and friends and relatives of people that want good for the island. I don't think we can sit around and lose and waste time. It's something we want to hear a plan. What is going to be done? It's difficult, but it's not impossible. The United States has the means. NATO. There was a petition put out by someone unknown to many of us from Belgium. He's a Cuban. He put out a petition asking for intervention to the president, to Congress, to NATO, to the United Nations. 300,000 signatures as of this morning, just yesterday and today. This is the letter that it was to Congress, and then it has to go to a representative of Congress from our district. And we want to hear, sitting at the White House and explaining what happened on Sunday as being unprecedented is not news. We know that. What is news is what's happening right now. People are dying in the streets at the hands of the Castro regime. They are bringing in reinforcement from Venezuela. The people, the killers that they had in Venezuela are over in Cuba now. And the people out there don't have any other place to look but to their armed forces turning and disobeying orders, or someone from externally giving them a hand.
Thank you very much for being here today, Governor Desantis, Lieutenant Governor Nunes, and all the elected officials and parts of the Cuban community and other communities with whom we share this beautiful city of Miami, where so many dreams have been fulfilled and so many sadness has been left behind. I believe we are living historical moments, undoubtedly, in Cuba and for the Cuban people. The Cuban people are hungry, but they're not hungry for food. They're hungry for freedom, fundamental rights, for being able to raise their families, to do what they want, to think what they want, to be free, something that we know very well here and that we defend with all our heart. So that's why I believe that the moment for Cuba is now. What we've seen throughout the island, from one end of the island to the other, is the Cuban people, in its majority, the youth of Cuba, in its majority, what are they asking for? What are they demanding? They're demanding freedom. They are demanding an end to the dictatorship. They are demanding a new Cuba. They are waiting for our solidarity. And they're out there in the streets being violently repressed, being even shot, and being violently handled, while the whole world is looking at something that has not stopped. They have lost, as they have said and repeated, we are not afraid. So we, at this moment in time, we need to stand with them. We need to firmly stand with the aspirations of the Cuban people. It's been 62 years already. There have been so many opportunities and so many wasted opportunities. What different would the history be if we had dealt at the time we needed to deal with this in 1961 with the Bay of Pigs invasion, when the air cover was taken away from the Cuban patriots that were there defending freedom for our country. So, there are a lot of things we can do. We can talk, but I think that more than talk, we need actions. And we need actions that define our position as the bastion of freedom and democracy in the world. We need active intervention of the international community to avoid a bloodbath in Cuba, led by the United States, firmly standing beside to remain in place. We need not to give unilateral concessions to a dictatorship that the more you give, the more they take. This is our moment. This is Cuba's moment. So I entrust you, Governor Desantis, Lieutenant Governor Núñez, all our elected officials, and all freedom-loving people from Nicaragua, from Venezuela, from everywhere we're seeing in our hemisphere, which peace is also threatened by what started in Cuba 62 years ago, that has gone throughout the rest of the region, even undermining our American values. So thank you very much for hearing me out and for inviting me to this very important meeting. Thank you.
Rosa Maria, you want to say a few things?
Thank you so much, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, all the elected officials that are here with us today. I'm not even an American citizen, so I'm very humbled to be here and to hear so many voices from this country that are mainly also from my country, but from this country are investing so much in helping our people. So thank you very much. And there have been said everything that is important. More than 45 between among towns and cities rise up on Sunday, and those protests continue on Monday and continue today, even despite the repression, the brutal repression that have been implemented by the regime right now on the island. There is a lot that the international community can be doing and is not doing. And that international community is European Union, is all the member states of the OAS, but it's also United States, and they need the leadership of the United States in order to do so. That leadership is something that we're not seeing right now. I have here with me some points that of course are also in support of everything that has been said already. It's very important, the fact that the United States has the capacity to give communication to the Cuban people right now. And that communication, that satellite internet access is key because that communication is what can save life right now in the streets in Cuba. The United States has that capacity, so they should be implementing
Yes.
that. The other points that I have here have been already said, but it's important when you, because and this is an ask. Please, this ask needs to be heard in Washington. We know all the challenges there, but please also give our message, and these messages come from many on the civil society and the opposition. These messages come from the people that signed the Acuerdo por la Democracia, the Agreement for Democracy, which is almost everybody, if not everybody, in this room, but also within the Cuban opposition and the civil society in and out the island. It's very, very important to pass the message. No negotiations with
Yes.
the Cuban regime.
No.
Anyone in the international community speaking for us. The Cuban people is already speaking very loud and clear in the streets. They
Yes.
want the end of the dictatorship. They want freedom. They were screaming freedom, freedom, freedom. No one is entitled to diminish that or to try to change that message because it's very clear and loud, and the Cuban people is taking the risk or saying that. Of course, there are very clear conditions, and conditions as the liberation of the political prisoners, conditions as the end of the repression. That should be demands of the American administration, demands that should be also carried to the OAS and all the member states of the OAS, because they have the responsibility of actually protecting the right to democracy of all the peoples of the America. And we should be also demanding from the inter-American system action and from our sister republics in the hemisphere some action, and that requires the leadership of the United States. Targeting sanctions to the individuals that right now are ordering the military to shoot against people,
Yes.
against young people, against kids. There was a kid, 13 years old, killed yesterday in the streets of Las Tunas in Cuba. Why? Why so many enterprises are still doing business with the Cuban regime? It is important to demand. We need money for the satellite, for the rest of that. All that we need is just political will. Why so many enterprises are doing business with the Cuban regime when the Cuban regime is shooting people down in the streets?
Mhm.
That message needs to be articulated by President Biden, and those enterprises should also have consequences. But we're not asking for something like this, like extraordinary. No, we're asking for the Sullivan people. We're asking for the same thing that they did in South Africa. Why Cubans are less? We're not less, and we're demanding freedom in the streets.
Great job. Okay. All right. Trujillo, Ambassador Trujillo, welcome.
Thank you, Governor. It's an honor to be here with you today, and Lieutenant Governor, it's always great to see you. Marcel, thank you for the invitation. I think in American history, we oftentimes fail to teach our children the importance of history, the importance of democracy. We oftentimes at universities see students walking away with chicken parachutes. I always tell people, instead of having your chicken parachute, you should wear a pink parachute. Because there's a lot of people in this world.
Yes.
True patriots fight every single day for democracy. Being here, being home, it's an honor to be amongst a lot of you because I know what you stand for. But seeing where we are today, I think it's a dichotomy of policies. We saw the appeasement policy when it did under Obama. The fact that we think we're going to placate the totalitarian regimes and somehow they'll begin to respect human rights. And we know that that did not work. And then we saw the policy of maximum confrontation, a policy of strangulation, a policy of sanctions. When there is no gas on the island today that's causing pressure on the regime, those were the sanctions of the last administration, cutting off the fuel supply for Venezuela. When there is no cash on the island today, it's because we restricted remittances. When there's no direct foreign investment today, it's because we canceled a lot of the tourism programs. So I think as we review these policies going forward, you already hear the narrative that this is a humanitarian crisis. There's not a single person asking for food or vaccine. Every single person is asking for food. It's not a humanitarian crisis, it's a political crisis.
Yes.
I think it's important for all of us to channel that energy. Just yesterday, they started restricting sanctions on PDVSA, the state-owned oil company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just think about giving Venezuelan Communist Party more money. What would that do? I think it's incumbent upon everyone here to continue to demand that not only do we continue with the sanctions, but we double down. Democracy and human rights shouldn't be a part of it. Every single freedom-loving American should fight it. And as we look as these sanctions are constantly being lobbied and reapproached, there are companies that have not just miles from here. They used to love traveling to Cuba and partying. So they were stopped at massive expansion. Those companies should have a moral responsibility, especially in the world of this cancel culture, that they should not do any business with the Cuban Communist Party. And if they do, all the elected officials in this room should hold them accountable. Thank you.
Sir, very briefly, because the main points have been made, we're speaking as a unified community. But first of all, I want to thank on behalf of the Assembly of the Cuban Resistance, Marcel Felipe for leading this effort, you and the Vice Governor for the kind of leadership you have. We greatly respect and admire you because you're one of the leaders in America today who calls things as they are, and you have the moral backbone to follow through. So I will very briefly recommend what we see as a unified community, as a unified resistance. These are the facts. The facts are the Cuban people rose against the tyrants on Sunday, and they haven't given up. We've had 3 days of continuous protests. We keep on having reports of different protests in different parts of the country. Taking into account the kind of repression there is, that is heroic. Second of all, objective fact, the Cuban dictator, Diaz-Canel, has gone on television twice and issued what he calls the call to combat, the order to combat, which means the extermination of protesters. He's referring to them as if they weren't Cubans, as if this is some kind of giant conspiracy. He's authorizing the use of deadly force against everyone. That's what we're seeing. We're receiving too many reports of too many deaths throughout Cuba to ignore them or dismiss them. There are hundreds of people arrested. This regime is playing by a guide to repression that has worked for them for 62 years. And we've seen that guide to repression work in Syria, in Nicaragua, and Venezuela. And they're applying it now. They're crushing the Cuban people now. In the face of that bloodshed. And you look around this table, the people you invited here, we have Rosa Maria, whose father was murdered by that regime. We have our beloved Miriam de la Peña, whose son was one of our brothers who was shot down on February 24th. Today, Governor Sylvia, who's a survivor of that massacre. Today, we're commemorating 27 years of them sinking a tugboat of families trying to escape and killing them. How many massacres more can we list? How many more are we going to tolerate? So it is incumbent upon us morally to call for what we see is in the best interest of the United States and the Cuban people. Decisive military action. If not, the Russian advisors who are already getting to Cuba, Putin has had the gall to tell the U.S. not to intervene in Cuba in the last 2 days. Chinese, Russian, Iranian advisors will do in Cuba what they've done in Iran, and Syria, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, and consolidate their foothold in the Western Hemisphere. That affects Florida directly. So with total understanding of the consequences of what we're calling for, and hearing what the Cuban people are asking us to call for, we think that direct military intervention is the way to safeguard the Cuban people and to bring an end to the regime. There are legal instruments the president can refer to. There's a public law from 87-772 from 1962 that gives the president the faculty to intervene on behalf of restoring sovereignty to the Cuban people, and that's what we're fixing now. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for listening.
We are very impassioned people. Each one of us is a tremendous orator for that subject. But as we have the opportunity to have elected officials sitting here with us, we'll go over some key points that I think are relevant for you guys as you make policy. One, it's an electoral reality. One of the things that this has done is unite our community like never before. It doesn't matter if you were previously perceived to be on the softer side of things. there is not one single organization. So there's not one single organization right now calling for any negotiation with the regime. And we have independently come to that conclusion. We haven't decided to have a meeting about this to have a common position. And it's for a very simple fact. And this is a message that perhaps the administration should have heard when it made that statement. The people on the ground are asking for an end to the regime. We are going to be supporting them. We cannot be asking for anything less. So while the president's message, which was, by the way, wrangled after a lot of pressure from Senator Menendez's office and the office of several of our members of Congress and senators, and with the support of the very ones that are here today. You can tell it was still a statement that was put together with several different pieces, and it falls short. While it attempts at providing solidarity, it has two key things that we must never repeat. Or three. One is, again, he's asking the Cuban government to take care of its people. We are not asking. No one in Cuba is asking for the Cuban government to reform. We're just asking it to leave. Period.
Exactly, yes.
Every public message, as elected officials, you guys draw attention, camera follow. Every public message has to convey that. That's a very, very key point. A very sister point to that is when you speak, you don't speak to the Cuban government. You speak to the Cuban people.
Exactly.
And if anything, to the Cuban armed forces. The Cuban people have already spoken. They've hedged their best. They've taken their position. It is now time for the Cuban military to decide if they want to be the heroes of a new republic or if they want to be the oppressors of the last republic. That's the choice for them. The Cuban government plays no part in this. The Cuban government is the problem. They cannot be part of the solution. That's another key point to keep in mind as we're developing this. And again, I've spoken with all of the organizations from different spectrums. Everyone's united on these messages. This is not an Inspire America platform or a directorial platform or Cuba Decide platform. These are basic things. And one other small nuanced thing. Oh, a couple more than one. Their freedom to peacefully protest. That statement applies very well in democracy, where the government gives you options to effectuate change. They're called elections. But when the government gives you no options, then we cannot be limited to peaceful protests. American patriots were not limited to peaceful protests when we declared independence from the United Kingdom. So it was very clear on that nuance. Things will get worse, and when they get worse, we can't be going back to this concept of holding them to a different standard than what the regime is currently proposing. Two other things that are on the horizon and that I think are particularly important for Florida and Florida elected officials. One of the things the regime has always done in these times is open up the floodgates. That's why many of us are here from every single generation for the last 62 years. And it is always a politically sensitive issue because how do you say we don't want immigration? We don't want you. A lot of elected officials are very scared of that subject. This community is united in backing you up and saying we are not going to let the Cuban regime this time around have its way and have an escape valve so that it can cure its problems. Cuba's problems need to be cured in Cuba with our support. And I'd like to close by reiterating something that Senator Rubio said, Rosa has said, and everyone here has said, the importance of internet to the island. SpaceX has the ability to do this.
Yes.
Space Data is another company that has the ability to do this. Google has the ability to do this. We've worked with them. When Tomás Legarao was at Radio Marti, we began that project. With his departure, it got put on hold, but it's there, and it can be done. And I'm sure our military has the ability to do this. They're having an information blockade, which is the most important weapon they can have. It's against communism. Their worst fear and our biggest weapon isn't guns, it's the truth. If we can let that and bring it over to Cuba, we've got it made. Thank you.
We'll hear from our Congress folks.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you for being here. We're very sorry, I'm sure that I speak for Carlos and myself, we're very sorry that we do not have a uniform.
I'm not sorry. I'd rather be where I'm at. That's
We
okay.
would have loved to serve with you, but we are even more delighted that you are the governor of the state of Florida. And I'm sure Carlos agrees with me that all your former colleagues reach out to us and say, Ron is doing such a wonderful, wonderful job. So we commend you and we salute you for that. I believe that as Congress people, we need to join forces with you. We need to be all one united voice. And as Marcel says, the first thing we need to do is demand that the government, the Biden administration, provides internet to the people of Cuba. If the Congress, if the Cuban regime has the ability to shut down hotspots and everything that has to do with the Wi-Fi, and massacre in biblical proportions could be happening, and we don't know about it. So I think that we should definitely join forces, reach out to your office, see in which way we can help you, and all of us work together at the federal and at the state level, demanding the Biden administration that this is the moment of truth. As I've been saying on the air, it has nothing to do with the Republicans or Democrats. These are Americans joining and helping Cubans. Cuba is closer to Miami than Orlando is to Miami. So I think this is the moment of truth, and we are here to help you and send the right message and just hear your guidance at the federal level. And thank you once again for being here and helping us.
Great.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for having this meeting, this roundtable here. It's important, I think, for Maria Vida and I to, as the federal officials here, to listen to the ideas of and what it is that we need to do in order to have Cuba, which is our dream. Outside, I think I'm one of the few members of Congress actually born in Cuba. Okay, there may be another member, actually a Democrat from New Jersey, that was actually born in Cuba, and then I think Bob Menendez was probably born in Cuba. But today I spoke with the State Department and asked questions and also gave comments as to what I thought should be done. Number one, no negotiations with the Cuban government at all, zero. Limiting access to credit for the Cuban government. The Cuban government now has a very limited access to credit around the world because simply they don't pay their bills. They don't pay their bills because they run a communist system, which is a failed system and failed economic system, which is failing their people, failing to provide them with the basic necessities that they need for everyday life. And so for us, there should be no lifeline whatsoever to this critical economic crisis that Cuba faces today because of the fact that they don't pay their bills. I asked about the technology does the technology exist to assure that the people of Cuba have access to internet? Interesting that the State Department doesn't know the technology exists. Okay. Now, there are people in this room that tell me that technology exists. And so why the State Department doesn't know that technology exists when people in this room do is beyond me. But I asked them to be cordial. Well, if you find out that the technology exists, can you call me back? Because as a member of Congress, I want to make sure that whatever technology exists that will give back the people of Cuba the ability to communicate inside of Cuba, I want to push for that. And I'm sure that Maria Vera will do the same. I believe that's key. That's key to continuing the uprising, the revolt that we see, in Cuba today. It is spontaneous. It was organic. It's being shut down by tactics that have worked for over 60 years. But 60 years ago, there wasn't an internet, and today there is an internet. And today, a lot of Cubans have phones, smartphones that communicate with each other. They have Instagram. They have all kinds of stuff to be able to communicate with each other. And I think that's key to the whole And so I've asked them to do that. And if I know that the technology exists, one good thing is I serve on the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. Okay, so if it needs to go into space, I can probably get some people to help me to put it up in space. And so that is another key element of what we need to do in Cuba. We need to support the Cuban people. We need to know that we are behind them. We need to bring light to the atrocities that are happening in Cuba so that the international community also gets behind our efforts. And so again, no communications, no negotiations, limit access to credit, support also financially the leaders of this movement inside Cuba. They need our help. And by the way, it doesn't mean that they need millions and millions of dollars. It doesn't take much. So internet, limit credit, help the people that are the leaders of the movement, and support for the Cuban people. And I know that we have other ideas, and that's why I'm going around. I saw, Rosa Maria yesterday, talked to her about what's going on in Cuba and what is the best strategy to bring about what we all want, which is freedom for my homeland. Look, there is one thing that we have to know. Everybody that goes out in Cuba and says the word, libertad, is risking their life.
Yes.
Article 4 of the Cuban Constitution says anybody who goes out and tries to change the government of the state of Cuba is a traitor, and any force can be applied to them. So just simply going out and saying libertad is actually a tremendous act of courage. And so I think we need to applaud all the people that are risking their lives in Cuba today for the cause of freedom. And let's give them a round of applause and solidarity.
Versailles. Antunes, el León de Placetas. Antunes spent 17 years in prison and has his scars to do it. Tienen ahí las cicatrices, muéstrase. Yeah, he says, they started all over, so they never able to take his weather requirement.
You have my support. The people of Cuba have my support. I know we can count on Maria Vida and other members of Congress. And we actually, I think we have bilateral support on the Cuban cause. And so we need to leverage that. And leverage that with the Biden administration, make sure that they don't make the mistakes of the past, and give the Cuban dictatorship, the Cuban regime, a lifeline now when they're in dire straits. And let's throw them an anchor, not a lifeline.
You should be one of those voices because we have been hearing, I'm in the Foreign Relations Committee, and unfortunately, we just read the statement from Chairman Meeks, was saying that what was happening on the streets of Cuba was because of lack of vaccine.
Oh my God.
And I reached out to Alcides, who is the person that Carlos was referring to. We definitely need your leadership because you are not only the governor of the state of Florida, you're a very important, very well-respected figure within the Republican Party. And we do need you as much as we can help you. So what Carlos is saying is because our concern is that the Biden administration may not read the signs that we're reading as clearly as we are. So we got to remind them. I think that the best way is not to put them against the wall, but just to tell them that we are here guiding or giving them guidance as to what are the statements that need to be made. Because what Meek said was completely unacceptable.
Finally, Governor, I wrote a letter to President Biden today asking for him to remove Julie Chung.
Yes.
Position in
Yes. Yes.
Anybody
so wrong that it's about COVID and food shortages doesn't deserve to be in the State Department advising the President of the United States about anything. And so, we'll continue to monitor, and again, hopefully we can stay in touch with everybody in this room. Give us your ideas, and we take them back to Washington, see if we can finally see. My dream is to go back to see the places where I lived, the places where I was born, the place where I was born, my ranch in Manzanillo, my apartment building in Havana, which, by the way, is about destroyed. It's unbelievable what they've done to it. But you know, I yearn to go back to my homeland and just see the places. I'm not going to stay there. I'm an American. Okay, my life is here. But I certainly would love to help rebuild, you know, my country as well.
Yes.
We got a lot of state legislators. I'll have Senator Diaz make any comments. One thing I do think, just hearing about the internet, some of these companies are based in Florida, or at least have big operations, mostly in the Space Coast. So we'll be able to make some calls there and
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, Governor. And I first want to thank you for immediately when this went down, without hesitation, jumping in and supporting our community, supporting the people of Cuba and freedom, and being, at a time when words matter and actions matter, you were unequivocal and being clear, just like you were today, that this is about the end of the regime. This is not about COVID or anything else they want to paint it. So I want to thank you because we see you as a national leader. On behalf of every member of our delegation here who are both of Cuban-American origin or represent communities that are majority Cuban, we want to thank you. And a lot has been said on policy, but I want to give you what I believe every one of us are feeling, a heartfelt thank you for your support. Every single member of the exile community that is here today, whether on the table behind or outside, because of the struggles they have gone through throughout the years, the fight that they have put forward has been 60 years. Again, a heartfelt thank you. We appreciate you, and we see you as our leader. We have your back, so thank you for being with us.
Great. Thank you. At some point, okay, so I think they're going to probably rustle up some media, and I'll make a few comments, and maybe we'll have a couple more folks just reiterate this. Is there any issues that have not been discussed that any of you think are important that we should know? Okay, yes.
Thank you so much, Rosa Maria. First of all, as the only person, one of the few people on the panel who's not elected, I'm impressed by your steps. You know, actually detailing what we need to do, because I think that's what we haven't heard.
And so
they're always asking.
the society and the decision is actually a united voice.
So I pretty much summarized them and typed them up, because I'm gonna try to get that message out. I think everybody in this room who's getting all the media attention that they're getting should have those 5 key points that you outlined here in every single appearance. The only thing I didn't hear was, I talked a couple of times about the Monroe Doctrine. I know it was created in the 1850s, but it's something that if they reaffirm that doctrine, it shows that anybody who intervenes in Cuba in what's going on there is actually an act of aggression towards the United States and any democratic country. And so that's something that maybe we can get the international community to agree on and use that as a statement, a firm statement that the Biden administration, it's not saying we're going to go intervene with military, but it's saying that if you do intervene, any other country steps in and butts in what's going on organically, then you're an aggressor. The United States, then we intervene. So just something like that really firm. I think if everybody can also maybe communicate that to the Biden administration, bring that back to the So thank you all so much. I'm really impressed by everything that's been said. I'm really proud. My grandfather died in Cuba, political prisoner. He wasn't even buried. He didn't even have a tombstone. You don't even know what he is if you've ever been able to go back. I fight every day in Little Havana with tourists who ask me, oh, you're Cuban. Oh, I want to go back to Cuba. How great is Cuba? So I'm always trying to show them this is the real Cuba. This Friday is Viernes Culturales. We're going to do an exhibit from a photographer who's been traveling to Cuba and capturing the real images of what happens there. The rest of the world and the rest of the country, even here in the United States, have no clue what happens in Cuba. They all romanticize the crap out of it. They come to the visitor center in Little Havana. They're like, oh, we want to go to Cuba. This is the closest we'll get to Cuba. Some of them come even had people selling travel trips to Cuba in our welcome center. Nobody even noticed. I put a stop to it. I kicked them out. I'm like, no way. So thank you so much, all of you, for being here and calling attention to this. And I want to cry out because I never got to meet my grandfather. My grandmother came to this country alone with her 3 children. They didn't speak English. They moved to Kentucky. They, you know, their struggles is why I struggle so much to keep this history alive for all of us. I feel like we're losing it. I wish more young people like Chloe who came with me today said, "You need to keep spreading this message because it's dying. Our grandparents are dying, or you know, my mom and dad are like, you know, still around telling me the stories, but eventually they all die off, and then this just becomes a memory. So this moment is so crucial. It's a window and an opportunity that I don't want to miss. I don't want it to turn into a massacre. So thank you all.
There was somebody that was supposed to be at the table that gave up graciously his seat. She is COO of America TV. I don't know if he has any comment. I'll translate. Go ahead.
Recuerdo cuando estuvimos en la oficina del congresista.
It reminds when we visited you in DC.
Y
He
desde
speaks more
entonces,
Spanish than he lets on.
I know. Y recuerdo que desde que lo vi, se lo comenté a Marcel en Hotel Solidario. Usted es el líder que nosotros hoy aquí en el estado de la Florida. Es verdad que la política exterior la dicta el gobierno federal.
It's true that the foreign policy is dictated by the federal government.
Pero usted es nuestro gobernador
But you're our governor.
de 1 millón de cubanos.
Of a million
Y
Cubans.
un problema en Cuba es un problema de política exterior.
And the
Y
problem
no hay
in Cuba
nadie, no
is
hay
a problem
nadie
of foreign policy. But there's no one
que tenga la posibilidad
that has the possibility
de llamar al presidente de los Estados Unidos y decirle, acabo de estar con los cubanos en Miami.
that can tell the president, I just spent time with Cubans in Miami. No one else knows.
Primero, suscribo todo lo que se ha dicho aquí en 1000%.
I agree with everything that's been said here, 1000%.
Y no voy a repetir lo que
I'm not going to repeat it.
tan mente brillante y compatriotas han dicho.
It really applies.
Pero una cosa que se le puede pedir a Washington, y lo comentaba ayer con Rosa María, que
One other thing that could be
le apliquen
asked
a
of
Díaz
Washington,
Canel y a todos los que están reprimiendo en la calle la ley Magnitsky.
to apply the Magnitsky law to Díaz Canel and everyone else. Giving them protection. Organized crime.
El Departamento de Estado no puede seguir esperando. Eso tiene que ser un anuncio ya esta
That
semana.
has to be.
Yo tengo las pruebas aquí de hoy. Nosotros tenemos las imágenes hoy, no ayer, hoy, ahora. Y esa es una herramienta porque la evidencia existe. No hay que esperar nada. La evidencia está en
The evidence is there, it exists. The TV station, they have the images. They have to proceed immediately.
Número 2. Hace unos meses, la Casa Blanca en una conferencia de prensa dijo que el cambio de política hacia Cuba y el tema de Cuba no era una prioridad. Hoy no es una prioridad. Esto es un asunto de seguridad nacional.
A couple of months ago, the White House said that changing its Cuba policy wasn't a priority. Now it's not only not a priority, it's a matter of national security, an urgency of national security.
Y cualquier asunto que trate Díaz Canel, que ya lo ha manejado, y el régimen de Raúl Castro es el jefe, señor, de provocar de nuevo un éxodo, eso tiene que ser considerado un acto hostil, un acto de guerra.
And any attempt to provoke another exodus has to be
Ahí
declared a hostile act.
ahí está la base naval de Guantánamo, María Elvira que está aquí, y Mario Díaz Balart. Ellos promovieron una iniciativa de ley para el asunto de la reunificación familiar. Ahí está congelada, ¿no, María Elvira? Ahí está congelada.
For all those interviews that have not been able to be conducted in the embassy because it's been shut down because of the sonic attacks. Mario Diaz-Balart was the originator of this law, where we were inviting the Cuban government and the administration to open up its doors, Guantanamo doors, so the Cubans could go and do the final interview before they got their humanitarian visas. We know obviously what the answer was going to be. It's too convenient. Obviously, they didn't even answer, but I think it was a good initiative.
Traduzco, mire.
lo último que voy a decir,
The last thing I want to say is,
lo último que voy a decir, gobernador, la Casa Blanca no le puede dejar de tomar una llamada a usted. Usted solo con contar y con lo que nos ha comentado aquí al inicio, lo claro que tiene la realidad nuestra, aquí en Miami y en Cuba, es un acto importante, es una noticia nacional. Yo he visto la cadena Fox, he visto otras cadenas, pero su voz es una voz importantísima, porque usted es el gobernador nuestro.
Governor, the White House has to take your call because you are our governor. When you say it's national news, they have to listen to you because you know what's going on.
Yeah, so I mean, people can still, talk and just, so why don't you bring them in and then you guys can say what you want. Yep, yep.
We cannot spend now days and weeks and months talking about this. We need to do this yes now. We need to get the arms to the people that are there. Nobody wants to talk about our, those poor people are sitting something in the middle of the ocean that is a satellite, what do you see for them to get the internet? I don't think you can get the internet from Key West to Cuba. Maybe you can, maybe it's broadband, but we need to not let them get cut off by the government. We need to fix this today, tomorrow, but not take months and talk